a wedding, a guest list, and a demanding mother-in-law. As soon as Emma got engaged to Daniel, she knew their wedding planning wouldn't be smooth sailing. Daniel's mother, Margaret, was known for her strong opinions and domineering personality. Still, Emma tried to remain optimistic, hoping that Margaret would ease into her role as mother of the groom without stirring too much trouble. The first few months of wedding planning went well. Emma and Daniel agreed on most of the major decisions: the venue, the date, and even the flowers. Daniel had been supportive of Emma's vision for their big day, which was an intimate ceremony with close family and friends, followed by a relaxed reception. Margaret had voiced her opinions, but, for the most part, stayed out of the way. Emma thought perhaps they had dodged the bullet. But then came the guest list. It all started one Sunday afternoon, when Daniel and Emma visited his parents for dinner. After the meal, while they were sipping coffee, Margaret brought up the guest list casually, or at least that's how it seemed at first. "Emma, darling," Margaret began, her voice sweet but with an undertone Emma had learned to recognize, "I've noticed the guest list is rather limited." Emma looked up, confused. "Limited? We've invited about 150 people. That's about all we can manage at the venue." Margaret sighed, her fingers tapping lightly on the armrest of her chair. "Yes, but you've invited quite a few of your family members, some of whom, if I'm not mistaken, you haven't even seen in years. Meanwhile, some of Daniel's family friends have been left out, friends who've known him his whole life." Emma tensed, realizing where this conversation was going. "We tried to keep it balanced between both sides of the family. Plus, we've already finalized the guest list, and the venue can't hold more than what we've planned." Margaret gave a tight smile. "I'm sure a few adjustments can be made. For instance, I have a group of friends from the country club, 5, to be exact, who would be thrilled to attend. They've been asking about the wedding for months now." Emma exchanged a glance with Daniel, hoping he would step in. He gave her a reassuring nod, but remained silent. Emma hesitated, trying to remain polite. "Margaret, it's not that we don't want more people to come, but we really don't have room. The guest list is already set, and we've sent out most of the invitations." Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly. "Surely you can remove a few people. I mean, do we really need all of your cousins there? I'm sure they'll understand if you explain that we have some important family friends who need to be accommodated." Emma felt her stomach drop. She had cousins coming from out of town, people who had been part of her life since childhood. The idea of cutting them from the guest list to make room for Margaret's friends, who she didn't even know, seemed absurd. "I'm sorry," Emma said firmly, trying to maintain her composure. "But those family members are important to me. We're not going to uninvite them." Margaret's pleasant expression dropped, revealing her frustration. "Emma, you're marrying into our family. You need to understand that Daniel's upbringing and social circle are important too. My friends have been like family to us. I just don't see why we can't make a few small changes." At this point, Emma's patience was wearing thin. Before she could respond, Daniel finally spoke up. "Mom, we've made our decision. The guest list is final." Margaret turned to her son, her face softening as she tried a different tactic. "Daniel, darling, I know this wedding means a lot to both of you, but it's important to me as well. Your father and I have been good friends with these people for decades. I just can't face them if they aren't invited." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mom, I understand you want your friends there, but Emma and I have to make decisions that work for us. We're trying to keep the wedding intimate. It's not about excluding anyone, but we can't fit everyone." Margaret's expression hardened again. "I see," she said, her voice icy. "So my friends aren't good enough for your wedding. Is that what you're saying?" Emma could feel the tension rising. She didn't want to fight, especially not over something as trivial as guest numbers, but Margaret seemed determined to make this a battle. "I didn't say that," Daniel replied, his voice steady. "But we've made our decision." Margaret stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Well, I hope you both enjoy your wedding. Just know that you're making a big mistake by excluding people who care about our family." She stormed out of the room, leaving Emma and Daniel in stunned silence. Emma could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She had known this would happen at some point, but it didn't make it any easier. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Emma nodded, though she felt anything but okay. "I just don't understand why she's making such a big deal out of this. It's our wedding, not hers." Daniel sighed, his face troubled. "She's always been like this. She wants control over everything, and it's hard for her to let go." For the next few days, Margaret gave them the silent treatment, which was almost worse than the confrontation. Daniel tried to smooth things over with his mother, but every time he called, she was curt and distant. It wasn't until a week later, when Emma received a call from Margaret herself, that the tension came to a head. "Emma," Margaret said without preamble, "I've thought about it, and I'm willing to compromise. You can keep most of your family on the guest list, but I still want at least 3 of my friends to be added." Emma's heart sank. She had hoped the issue was behind them. "Margaret, we can't—" "I'm not asking any more," Margaret interrupted, her tone firm. "If my friends aren't there, then I won't be either." Emma froze. Was she really threatening to boycott her own son's wedding over a few extra guests? "I'm sorry you feel that way," Emma replied, her voice tight, "but we're not changing the guest list. I hope you'll still come to the wedding, but that's your choice." Margaret hung up without another word. The next few weeks were filled with tension as the wedding day approached. Margaret remained distant, attending only the events she absolutely had to, and making her displeasure clear at every turn. Emma and Daniel did their best to ignore the drama and focus on their special day, but the shadow of Margaret's disapproval loomed over them. On the day of the wedding, Emma was a bundle of nerves. The ceremony went off beautifully, and as she walked down the aisle to marry the man she loved, all the stress of the past months faded away. But when she glanced out at the guests, she noticed something unsettling. Margaret's seat was empty. After the ceremony, during the reception, Daniel finally approached her with an apologetic look. "She didn't come," he said quietly. Emma felt a pang of sadness, but also relief. Margaret had made her choice, and while it hurt, Emma knew they had done the right thing by standing their ground. As the night went on, surrounded by their loved ones, Emma and Daniel danced, laughed, and celebrated the beginning of their new life together. The absence of one guest couldn't overshadow the joy of their wedding day. It was a reminder that no matter how difficult family could be, love and unity between the couple mattered most. In the end, they had their wedding just the way they wanted, and that was enough. Emma's dream wedding takes a dramatic turn when her controlling mother-in-law, Margaret, demands that Emma remove her own family from the guest list to make room for Margaret's country club friends. Faced with an impossible ultimatum, Emma and her fiancé Daniel must decide whether to give in to Margaret's demands or stand their ground, risking family tension. As the wedding day approaches, Emma learns that sometimes the hardest battles come from those closest to you. Will love prevail, or will the family conflict overshadow their special day?